Today we are making potato rolls for two. Now these are the lightest, fluffiest dinner rolls you will ever have. This is another You Asked For It recipe, thanks to someone who left a comment asking me to do a small batch potato roll recipe. They are amazing. So join me in the kitchen as we make small batch recipes with big taste. Potato rolls are the perfect thing to make with leftover mashed potatoes, but don't wait until you have leftover mashed potatoes to make these. Go ahead and make some mashed potatoes just to make potato rolls. They're that good. I'm going to just walk you through here how I make a little small batch version of mashed potatoes so that you have enough for a couple batches of rolls and maybe a little bit of leftover to munch on. All right, so today we're going to use russet potatoes for our mashed potatoes, and you only need a 1/4 cup of a mashed potato for these small batch potato rolls. So you could get away with just using one potato, but I always use at least two so that like I said, have a little bit left over to munch on, some mashed potatoes for lunch or something. My potatoes are not very big. I would say these are a medium-sized russet, so you could also just use one large russet potato. So you want to go ahead and peel your potatoes and then cut them into small pieces. We're going to put them into a pan first and then cover them with some cold water. Don't use hot water. It changes the texture of the potato and causes them not to cook evenly. So use cold water, and you want enough that just so it covers over the potatoes by about a 1/2 inch or so. Bring your potatoes to a boil and then boil them just until they're fork tender. You want that fork to slide in and out of that potato really easily. Drain the potatoes, and then we're just going to mash them up. I like to use my electric hand mixer, but you can totally do it by hand. Now we're not going to add in any extra butter or milk or seasoning to them. So for your mashed potatoes, if you are using leftover mashed potatoes that you have already seasoned with butter and salt and pepper and milk and such, it'll still totally work, but you will find that you're going to have to add in a little bit more flour into the dough to make it not so sticky. These potato rolls are a yeast roll, so we're going to start by proofing our yeast. I am using a dry active yeast. I have got a 1/2 teaspoon of yeast in here, and I put 2 tablespoons of warm water in my bowl. You want that water temperature to be between 105 to 110 degrees. If you're not sure what that is, go ahead and stick like a meat thermometer in it, but it's a nice warm baby's bath. So go ahead and add that yeast in. Then we're just going to take a spoon, mix it a bit so that yeast kind of gets nice and wet and dissolved there. Doesn't have to totally dissolve. And then what I like to do is just take a plate, put it over the top, let it sit for about 5 minutes until it gets nice and foamy. We are ready to assemble our dough now. Our yeast has proved, it's got a nice little foamy top on it. I'm going to use our stand mixer today with the dough hook, but you could totally mix this up by hand. So we're going to take our 1/4 cup of mashed potatoes. In here I have 3 tablespoons, let me double check. Yeah, 3 tablespoons of milk. You could also, if you had made your, save some of your potato water from your boiling your potatoes, you could totally use that too. 3 tablespoons of milk. You could use heavy whipping cream, whatever you like. I have a 1.5 tablespoons of softened butter. Get that in there. I have 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. You could also use honey here if you prefer. All right. And we're just going to kind of mix that up a bit with our dough hook. It's not going to totally all incorporate, but you just want to get it mixed together a little bit. All right, then we are going to add in 2 tablespoons of beaten egg. Do not put the whole egg in. You end up with really eggy rolls. So just beat up an egg in a bowl and measure out 2 tablespoons. And then save the rest of this egg for one of my giant cookies that you can find up there. So good. All right, then we're going to put our yeast, our proofed yeast mixture in. Make sure you get it all in. And then just swish that around a time or two. All right, and then we're ready to put our flour in. Now remember, if you are using mashed potatoes that you previously made and add milk and seasoning and butter in, you're going to need a little bit more flour. But we're going to start with 1 1/4 cup, and I'd like to, let me go grab a knife here. I'll show you. I like to measure my flour. I like to fluff it up, especially if it's been sitting for a while, aerate it a bit. We're going to scoop, and then we're going to just level it off with a knife. Okay, so let's go ahead and add that in. Then we'll add our 1/4 cup in. So like I said, if you're using previously seasoned mashed potatoes, you may need to add in as much as a 1/4 of an additional cup of flour. But start with just a tablespoon at a time and add it in. You want it to be a nice soft dough, but not like super sticky. And go ahead and just grab a spatula just so you can kind of push some of that flour off the sides of the bowl. And you just want to knead it until all that flour is incorporated and you have a nice soft dough. You're going to want to knead it for maybe 3 or 4 minutes in the stand mixer, a little bit longer if you're doing it by hand. So you want that dough to pull away from the sides of the bowl and also from the bottom. It is going to be very soft, and still what I would say a little tacky. Your fingers will stick just slightly to it, but you don't want it so sticky that you can't handle the dough. What we're going to do then is we're going to take our dough, and I just like to grease my bowl. I'm just spraying it here with a little bit of olive oil spray. Put my dough in and then turn it, flip it so that there's olive oil on that side. Put it in, and then we're going to cover it. We're going to let it rise for anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how hot it is outside, how warm your house is. But we want the dough to double in size. I'm going to show you a little trick here that I like to use that kind of maybe speeds up the process a bit, and is especially helpful if it's cold in your house. All right, we're going to take our dough. We're going to stick it in our oven. We are going to not turn the oven on. We're just going to turn the light on and put the dough in there and let it sit in the oven with the light on. Works great. You just need to make sure you don't turn the oven on to preheat it when the dough's still in there. All right, our dough has risen. It's doubled in size. We're gonna go ahead, this is my favorite part, punch it down. And then go ahead and take it out of your bowl. Just put a little bit of flour on your counter. All right. Sometimes I just like to knead it just a couple times. There we go. Now I'm gonna take my bench scraper. You can do this with a knife. You can just, whatever you've got. And I wanna cut it into 4 fairly equal pieces. There we go. I can tell, not quite even, but we'll just even them out there. All right, and I'm just gonna take each little piece of dough, roll into a ball. I am gonna use my baking dish. This is about a, I don't know, 4 by 7 baking dish. You could use a sheet pan, whatever you want. Just go ahead and grease it. I grease it here with a little bit of olive oil. And we're gonna take these rolls. Let me show you how I like to make my rolls. I just kind of like flatten the dough, and then I take the 4 corners and then just kind of smush them in the middle. You see that? So I kind of got the dough smushed underneath, put that down. And then with my hands, can you see here? Just like to kind of form it into a ball. There we go. And then we're gonna put them into our dish, and we're just gonna repeat. Just flatten it out a little bit, fold it together, all those edges into the middle there, and then let it form it into a ball. Put those in the pan. That's all you do, 4 times. After we have all 4 done, we're gonna cover it again one more time and let it rise. This time it'll take about 30 minutes until they've almost doubled in size. You can use the oven trick again, put it back in the oven with just the light on and let them rise. We're gonna also preheat our oven. So if you're preheating your oven, maybe don't put it in there or wait till after you pull it out, but you wanna preheat your oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, they're out of the oven. They smell amazing, of course. And so what I like to do, this is totally optional, is I'll take a little butter and just spread it over the top. What this does, it just kind of gives the crust of the roll a nice soft texture. But like I said, totally optional, but the more butter, the better as far as I'm concerned. All right, and it just makes them look prettier too, I think. So now I want to show you what these look like inside, because these are the lightest, fluffiest, look at that, most tender rolls you're ever going to try. That mashed potato in there gives these rolls such an amazing texture. So I don't remember who it was that asked me to make small batch potato rolls, but thank you. I forgot how delicious they were. So if there is a recipe that you would like to see me make here on Small Batch Big Taste, leave me a comment down below. Let me know what it is, and I hope you'll try these potato rolls, and I'll see you in the next video.